let's talk about the officiating in the NFL, because this is a favorite topic of 49er fans. I think Niner fans watched the Super Bowl last night with a great deal of schadenfreude. And if you don't know what schadenfreude means, it is a German term, and it means taking pleasure in someone else's misery. And last night, the misery was the Chiefs complaining about calls. Niner fans like, oh, how does it feel? How does it? Yeah. No, I'm not going to sing. Anyway, I was going to do D'Angelo, but I just didn't. Anyway, because he wouldn't get it anyway. The song's about as old as Vish. What I want to say to you, Vish, is do you have any thoughts on the consistency or the inconsistency of the officiating in the NFL?
Yeah, and so first, I do want to preface this by saying the officials had zero to do with why the 49ers lost the Super Bowl last year, okay? You have to just come to terms with that as a fan. But I do think that officiating crews in like the NFL in general, and I think there's a reason why Bill Belichick coaches his guys, based on the officiating crew. There's a thing that he's so detailed, they get into that. I think there is a reason for that. Just there's 3 games I'll bring up, okay? There's Bill Vinovich, okay? Bill Vinovich officiated the Niners-Chiefs game, right? Last year's Super Bowl. He's the guy who missed the call, Saints-Rams. What's Bill Vinovich's MO? Bill Vinovich's MO is he lets teams play. He doesn't call penalties. Their crew this year called the third. They were the third to last in penalties called this year in the NFL. Okay, third to last. That means of I think it's 17 officiating crews that they have. I think Bill Vinovich's crew was 11th in the number of penalties, 14th in the number of penalties they called. So that's not a lot of penalties.
But again,
called.
That's what the league wants.
Right.
A lot of the
and
time,
that's Bill Vinovich's MO. So that played into advantage of the Chiefs, who like to hold and like to be really grabby with receivers, right? Tony Romo pointed it out. And there's a play that circulated around Twitter for a little bit, and it was really to point out Jimmy Garoppolo missing George Kittle. And again, Rich Madrid, who does a really good job with the Niners stuff, he was the one who posted it. And it's a cover 0 play where Daniel Sorensen busts basically the coverage and Kittle's wide open. But the backside of the play is actually not a bad decision by Garoppolo. Kittle is wide open 2 yards in front of him, but it's cover 0. Corner's playing outside leverage, and Emmanuel Sanders is about to break in for a touchdown, and the corner just holds him at the top of the route. Now, the next play was 3rd and 8 and was Garoppolo's best throw of the game, where he hits Kendrick Bourne for the first down. But that plays a touchdown to Emmanuel Sanders if the corner doesn't hold him at the top of the route. And those are the little things where yesterday's crew, Carl Sheffers, who called the second amount of penalties in the NFL, they would have called the penalty in that game, and that would have made a difference. And you can look at the difference between Carl Sheffers' crew in the NFC Championship game and Carl Sheffers' crew in the Super Bowl. In the NFC Championship game, if Carl Sheffers was the one who officiated that game, I have no doubt that the Green Bay Packers would have won that game, because I forgot who officiated that game, but they let them play. And that officiating crew, the Packers receivers were getting mugged. And the Packers offense, someone else pointed it out. I think it's Chris Sims. He said the Packers offense is about execution. And if they're not getting the calls and stuff like that, they're not going to out physical or out talent anybody, because their offense is built solely on execution. And so the referee crews in general, because of the inconsistency and the human error in the NFL, is going to make a difference. I think the number one thing you should do, and it's what I've taught myself to do as a fan, is try and know the officiating crew. Don't get yourself worked up in the game if Bill Vinovich doesn't make calls. Bill Vinovich never makes calls. Don't get yourself worked up if
all the time. They'll be like, "Oh, it's this crew tonight." We already know Scott Foster's coming to town.
Right, James. If you were a Nets fan, Scott Foster is reffing the game. You might as well turn the TV off, because James Harden doesn't win with Scott Foster.
Yeah. Same thing. It's interesting to see these guys' tendencies. And honestly, if Bill Vinovich wants to not call a lot of things and not make the game about him, that's fine. That's what he always does. If Carl Sheffers wants to call the game by the book and not let any leeway go by, that's fine. As long as they call it the same way throughout the entire game, I really don't care. Because in baseball, they talk about how you got to have robots doing the stuff and you want to take the human element out. I like that umpires and referees have a style, and that's part of the game too. I kind of like that. I always have.
I hate it.
Scout them. Get to know them, because they're going to call it. If they're good, they're going to call it the same way the whole time. They're a human being. No one's going to call the same game the same way. No two referees are going to call one game the same way for 60 minutes. That's just impossible. They're humans.
And
so at least just be consistent.
It's
Yeah.
unfortunate because I mean,
Yes.
if you're the Niners, you're probably thinking, hey, if we had Carl Sheffers last year, we might have won. And it's hard not to think like that. But the ultimate thing is that the NFL doesn't pick and choose. I feel like Carl Sheffers. I feel like they don't pick and choose these officiating crews to help a certain team or hurt a certain team. Right. It's just the way it goes. You have to know that officiating crew, and that's part of playing the game.
Yeah, it's part of the battle.